surprised they do that. They never usually do.
Till he comes.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular City Council meeting for the City of Temple City, September 2nd, 2014. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Sternquist.
Present.
Councilmember Vizcarra.
Here.
Councilmember Yu.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez.
Here.
Mayor Bloom.
Here. For tonight's invocation, we have Pastor David Palmer from the First Methodist Church on Golden West, just behind the library here. David's been a regular here for assisting us for many years, so please join us in the invocation.
As I join you, I wanted to share with you these words coming to us from God. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon yourself and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Let us pray. Our God, we thank you that as we come together and do the work of the city, that you have gifted the city with wise and talented leaders. We ask, Lord, that you continue to bestow your gifts upon them as they deliberate tonight, Lord, that we are aware of your presence and your guiding hand. We thank you for this season as students are starting with school, the smile on their faces, the joy and the laughter. We want to lift up their teachers to you as well, Lord, that you would give them the strength and the wisdom to pass on to the next generation. Lord, in all these things that we do tonight and for this week in our lives, we uphold them and put them in your hands, that we would find that rest you promised to us as we seek you. In Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, I'd like to ask Natalie Scigliano to come up. She's with our youth committee to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, under item 5, presentations. First one is Pet of the Month. I'd like to call up Cindy Rigney, I believe, to introduce a pet. And I understand you're going to bring one in, but it got adopted today, so we have a new one.
Melody, who was named Melody because of her mellow personality, was a pit bull puppy, all of 6 months old, and went home today. Then we were going to bring another hound dog mix, Memphis. He was adopted today. This is Shibu Inu. She's new to us. She's a Shiba Inu mix, very intelligent breed. She's about 2 years old. I work at a private school. She could use a little schooling, so whoever the wonderful adopter is should probably take her to a training class. But she walks well on a leash. She's very playful. She's a puppy. She's just 2 years old and got a lot of puppy left in her. She's a good girl. Say hi, Shibu. Yeah, she's a little nervous. So she is available for adoption. And with your permission, I would like to share with you a couple upcoming events that we're really, really excited about at the shelter. Hopefully, Shiba will be adopted before the event. But on September 27th, we're having our 90th anniversary celebration, 90 years of service to the community of San Gabriel, Temple City, and most all of the San Gabriel Valley at one point or another. So we're very proud of that. We've got a block party 12 to noon. I will be emailing the information to all council members so that you will have that for you. Thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance. And we are also in honor of our founding 90 years ago in 1924. We're rolling back the time. And as some of you may be aware, cats are an issue with every humane society. There are far too many cats in this world that need good homes, and there just aren't enough good homes for them. But we're going to give it another try by a promotion, rolling back our prices to $19.24 and charging $24 for any cat over a year old. Okay, so hopefully that will be a good push for the cat lovers out there. And last but not least, we are putting a promotional fundraiser together. It's our first annual San Gabriel Valley Humane Society calendar. We are selling these for $10 a piece, so anybody that would like to purchase one, you can see me, you can come by the shelter, hopefully come by the shelter, pick up a calendar, adopt an animal. Okay, one taker already. That's great.
I'll take one.
Okay,
Going one, going two. Do we have three? Do we have three?
excellent. Okay.
Did you bring enough with you?
I did.
Don't take a check.
Fernando's paying for all of them, too.
Okay. All right, I think I got 5. If not, I got a few more in my car.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cindy.
You got a 10?
Okay, next is item B, the recognition of the youth committee members. I believe Kathy Burrows is going to introduce this item to us.
Good evening, council and members of the audience. We actually have 2 sets of recognitions. We want to recognize our outgoing 2013-14 Youth Committee and also introduce our 14-15 Youth Committee. Some of these are duplicates. As you may recall, last year, or 2 years ago, we instituted a change in the Youth Committee to require or recommend that Youth Committee members serve a 2-year term, which we felt would provide for greater consistency, and I think it has done that. So with that being said, I'd like to call up the 2013-14 Youth Committee members. Amber Lee, come on up to the front. Serena Lynn, Agnes Mock, Natalie Sigliano, Anita Velazquez, I saw just came in, Bailey Weiss, and Cynthia Young. Right up front.
Got to stand right in front.
I should mention that Cynthia and Anita will not continue on in their service. They both served more than a couple years on the youth committee, and Anita has a lot on her plate, being a junior this year at Maranatha. Cynthia is a senior this year, and because of the 2-year terms, it was decided to not have her continue on this time. Both we're hoping will continue to be involved in the community. This group has done an outstanding job the last year. They had 3 initiatives they were wanting to accomplish. The first was to assist with Rosemead Boulevard grand opening. They did an excellent job with the scavenger hunt. A second one is to develop or coordinate a Youth Engage conference, which is almost completed now, and that will be taking place October 23rd. More details to follow. And the third is to participate in the city's general plan process, and they will be involved in that once that gets up and going. So they've done a great job, and we thank you, ladies, for your service.
Okay, before you, we have letters of recognition for them, so let me do that, and then we'll take a group picture. Like council members to join us.
And as Mayor Bloom is doing that, as you can see, the women of the world are taking over, right? It just works out that way, but these are all very excellent students, and they're going to do a fantastic job in the future. So.
While they're getting their letters, I also want to mention that each of the committee members was assigned to various commissions that report to the city council. And they very diligently attended commission meetings and reported back to the youth committee, all 4 commissions. Next year's.
There you go. Councilmember Sturgis, can I get you? There you go. Thanks. More? Oh, perfect. That's great, thank you.
Okay, those that are continuing next year, stay here.
Anita and Cynthia, if you want to say just a few words about your experience, that would be appreciated.
They weren't ready for that.
Real quick.
Real quick.
We want to see how well they think on it. They weren't thinking I was going to do this, so see how well they think I'm going to be.
Okay. So,
How many years did you serve?
okay. I served 2 years on a committee, youth committee, sophomore and junior year, and I just want to say it was a great experience. And for the two newbies, I guess you guys will have a lot of fun and learn a lot. So really take advantage of this experience. And for the returners, good luck to you guys next year. And I know that you guys will do a lot more great events. Yay! Thank you.
Hi, my name's Anita. I've been on the youth committee. I was on the youth committee for 3 years. Started in 8th grade all the way through my sophomore year of high school, and it was a really tough decision to decide not to do this, just because it was like so much fun getting to know people that are actually like in my city. Because I've never gone to Temple City schools. I've always gone to school outside of the city, so I never really knew anyone nearby. So it was fun, like not only like getting to experience just what the youth committee does, but also getting to make friends that are actually like nearby, like in the vicinity of my own city. So yeah, it was really tough to make this decision, but I'm really gonna miss you guys, and I'm really hoping to stay involved with you guys.
Okay, so at this time, I want to call up our two new members that were appointed. Charlie Dodge. Charlie, come on up. Charlie is a freshman at Temple City High School and will be serving the next 2 years. And Sabrina Trin. Sabrina is a junior at Temple City High School and will also be serving 2 years. I mentioned that there is a Youth Engage conference plan, and while they're handing out certificates to our new committee members, real briefly, that will be held October 23rd from 6 to 9 p.m. It's for all youth 12 to 18 years of age, and it will be held here in the Civic Center. If those have submitted, some of you may have heard about or participated in the Citizens Academy. It's something along the same lines. There are 7 speakers confirmed with 2 concurrent sessions being held, and sessions will be held here in the council chambers, in the City Hall conference room, in the library, all throughout the Civic Center. It is free of charge. Dinner will be provided. And participants will learn not only how City Hall works, but also meet young professionals in cutting-edge fields to get their careers started. So signups will begin October 1st. More information to follow. All youth, 12 to 18, we're hoping you will attend. And here's our youth committee for 2014-15.
There you go. That's great, thank you.
Congratulations, girl.
Their first meeting at this time will be, we're looking at possibly changing the dates and times, but at this point, it will be the 4th Thursday in September, which I believe is September 25th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. And the public is invited to attend those meetings.
Thanks, Kath.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Okay, we'll now go to item 5C, which is a Chamber of Commerce quarterly update. I know Peter was here just a meeting or two ago, so he promised me it'd be short and sweet here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Temple Cityans. I just saw you at the last meeting. We'll be meeting shortly in just 2 or 3 weeks. So very quickly, I thought I would give a snapshot of what the Chamber has been doing for just the past week. Literally, just the past week. After the quickest job placement interview process in history, we have a new executive assistant in our office, Christy Lynn Bueno. You will be interfacing with her. She's fantastic. We're very excited to have her on board. So she has jumped right in. We have 2 new members. One of them is Nestle Waters. It's a big corporation, parent company to Arrowhead, San Pellegrino, Nestle Tea, Perrier. They joined the Chamber. And we also have Embellished Charms, which is a small home-based jewelry business run by a woman who lives right here in Temple City. So these are 2 bookends of the Chamber, and we have many members in between. This is just the past week. We also had our e-waste event at Super A Foods. 2 days, Saturday, August 23rd and 24th. The Chamber dropped off our own computers there. I must say there was a parade of cars dropping off electronic equipment. I said the next one should be in January because everybody gets new stuff for Christmas, so we're planning for that. Very successful. Also, I'd like to thank our chamber member and a sometime regular here in the Peanut Gallery, Mr. Franklin Rudell, chamber member who partnered with the chamber and the IRS to present a small business tax workshop in our boardroom. Not a lot of meeting spaces in the city, so I want to put out again that the boardroom is available for rental. Many groups use it. We have Wi-Fi, we have coffee, we have water, and you get a discount if you're a chamber member. Finally, again, we did celebrate our 90th anniversary. Hot off the press, extra, read all about it. We have our current issue of Temple City Life. We went back in time and had a little fun and printed it in black and white. On the back, you will also see a little ad for buying homes in Temple City in 1924, along with some vintage pictures. There are some pictures. Please go to our Facebook page, where you'll see pictures in black and white and in color. And again, we thank the city very much. We look forward to working together throughout the rest of the year, and thank you for this time.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item 6 on the agenda. This is public comments. The city council will now hear public comments regarding items not listed on the agenda. The procedure to address city council is highlighted on the first page of the agenda. Anyone care to speak at this time? Okay, hearing none, we will close public comments. We'll move to the consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be approved in a single motion as recommended unless removed for further discussion. Anyone?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I will need to abstain on the approval of minutes since I wasn't here last time, but all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, consent calendar has been approved. We now go to item 8, which is public hearing. There is none. Unfinished business, item 9A. It's a second reading and adoption of ordinance number 14-995, amending section 3-5D-9-D and adding section as listed of Article A of Chapter 5 of Title 3 of the Municipal Code relative to dogs in the public park. I believe we have a presentation from our Parks and Rec Director, Kathy Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. As indicated in the title, this is the second reading of the proposed ordinance which will amend the Temple City Municipal Code to allow leash dogs in certain areas of the parks. This is a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission based on input received during the Parks and Open Space Master Plan process. At your meeting on August 19th, council members requested staff contact the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority to inquire as if they had any questions or concerns in regards to the proposed ordinance. We did contact Maria Galvan, the risk manager for Temple City. She responded to staff stating that her only concern was the proposed code amendment was the hold harmless and waiver of liability language in the ordinance, which is section, the last section, D. It would be 3-5D-11D. With her concern, we did contact the city attorney via email. He indicated that her concern was that it might be difficult to enforce if it ever came to that.
Kathy, can you let the audience know what that language was?
Sure. That section reads currently, any person, I'm sorry, it's not that section. I'm sorry. It is B3. The presence of a dog shall constitute implied consent of the dog's owner or any person responsible for the dog to strictly follow the rules of this section and shall constitute a waiver of liability to the city, its elected officials, officers, and employees, and assumption of all risks, and an agreement and undertaking to protect and indemnify, defend, and hold harmless the city, its elected officials, officers, employees, for any injury or damage to persons or property during any time that the dog is in the park or civic center. Her concern was that it might be difficult to enforce, and although the city attorney and staff agree somewhat that it may be difficult to enforce, it was felt that it was better to have it in the section than not to include it at all. And so
I'm sorry, Kathy, did she recommend any different language, or
No.
did she recommend it to be taken out?
No, she
just-
said her only thing was that It's questionable whether it's enforceable, and she suggested that we consult with our legal counsel, which we did. So with that being said, staff recommends that the council consider moving forward with adoption of ordinance number 14995, amending the Temple City Municipal Code to allow leash dogs in certain areas of the city's parks, and wait for the reading.
Okay, are there any questions from council members?
Just want to hear what our city attorney has to say.
I'd be happy to address that. Your risk manager did raise an issue with regard to the practicality of enforcing it. From my perspective, she didn't have any problems with the language. I don't have any problems with the language. And I think that this city is always better served having language that refers to a waiver, release, and liability to preserve the argument. We will get sued in the event that some accident happens, and we're much better served to have waiver and release and indemnity language. I think that there's a very good chance that the language, we would argue, is enforceable. So I'm not of the opinion that this is completely contrary to the law. There might be arguments, that's why we have 10,000 plus attorneys in California. But I would always recommend that where something.
Try 100,000.
Could be. I didn't want to say a million.
The bar numbers are up to 275 now.
We should always preserve these type of arguments for the city and seek to preserve the liability and keeping in mind that what we're really trying to protect are the taxpayers' dollars that fund the city and would ultimately pay out any judgment. I'm very comfortable keeping this kind of language in the ordinance.
Okay, are there any other questions from council members? Okay, if there are none, I'd like to open it for public comments. Anybody have any comments they'd like to provide to us at this point? Seeing no one wishes to do so, I will close public comments. Okay, any council comments as we move towards a motion on this? Okay, there are none. I will entertain a motion at this point.
Mayor Bloom, I would make a motion that we waive further reading and adopt ordinance number 14-995, amending section 3-5D-9, period D, and adding section 3-5D-11 of Article A of Chapter 5 of Title 3 of the Temple City Municipal Code.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any objection? Hearing no objection, this item has been approved. We will now go to new business, item 10. Item 10A is the proposed design concepts for 5800 Temple City Boulevard. That's the piece of property where the former mortuary was. The city purchased that property and looking at what to do with it at this point. Presentation tonight will be by our Economic Development Manager and Assistant City Manager, Brian Hayworth.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Again, the item before you is in regards to design concepts for reuse of 5800 Temple City Boulevard. With me tonight is David Goodell of Gonzalez Goodell Architects, who have helped in preparing these scenarios. Just to provide a quick background of how we got here, back in April 2013, the city had purchased a former mortuary site for $1.05 million. At that time, the purchase was intended for a future city parking lot. In February 2014, the council established the Future Development of City Properties Standing Committee, which the objective was to look at future properties to purchase, as well as to look at reuse options for the city's current land holdings. In April 2014, the committee recommended that staff move forward in looking at site designs for reuse of the mortuary site, and consequently in May 2014, the council approved architect services with Gonzalez Goodell in an amount of $14,000. This summer, the architect presented 4 concepts. The 4 concepts looked at senior housing, a park, public parking, and also retail. Each of the 4 concepts had iterations that looked at various intensities of development. Through that first review with the standing committee, the committee had requested 2 additional iterations, which also looked at a live-work option as well as an interim green space slash public parking option. And we'll get more into those discussions later. But also wanted to make of note that the council at its last meeting had delayed site demolition of the mortuary site until direction was received tonight on how to move forward with the site's reuse. So with that said, I'm going to hand over the discussion to David Goodell, who will be outlining some of the design concepts.
Good evening, Mayor Blum, council members. There are a few very brief slides that establish the context for this study. The site, of course, is located at Temple City and Workman Avenue, and we're seeing it here in the light green circle. And we have all on the team talked about the importance of this site as a gateway to the city from the south. It's really where the commercial retail activity of the city starts. And so whatever happens with this site, it really has the potential to serve as an iconic entry point and a gateway to the city. And it also, I think in many ways, can serve as a prototype for further redevelopment of this block all along the block from Workman to Las Tunas. So the site is about 100 feet wide by 175 feet deep. It is at the edge of an alley on the right-hand side of the image, and it has about a 10-foot setback from Workman. Right now there is no sidewalk there, and an 8-foot sidewalk along Temple City Boulevard. One of the first things that we did was to study what is an allowable retail commercial use here, and the TC in the right-hand column is basically the Temple City Boulevard specific plan, and it lists those things that are permitted uses. In the green, we simply chose some of the uses that we thought might be, say, either likely or prototypical uses. So, for instance, a bakery, a convenience store, the kinds of retail that would fit the scale of this site. And also a restaurant or a cafe would also be a fitting use in terms of the size and the dimensions of the site. A public parking lot would be another option. Both restaurant and public parking would require a conditional use permit. And then also a senior citizen congregate care seemed a potential to look at in terms of a use for the site. And then we looked at setbacks. Basically, there are no setbacks required for the site, and we have a height limit of about 45 feet in terms of the building height. So the first set of concepts that we studied, concept one, are public parking alternatives. We had 2 alternatives in this territory, and one was basically to build a parking lot, a surface parking lot on this site. It's wide enough to get 2 angled parking bays, and we, with landscaping, we would have around 42 spaces of public parking in the first version of the parking lot. The second version, and this is the one that is, I think, most immediately recommended by the standing committee, is basically an interim solution that allows long-term study for this site. And it would basically demolish the existing mortuary, which is shown in the dashed line here, and build not a recreational landscape or a park, but basically a dense, iconic entry landscape to the city that would be planted along Workman, and then on the existing asphalt, in order to make it a very economical alternative, build 31 angled spaces, basically just restriping that and entering from Temple City Boulevard and exiting at the alley.
So with that said, staff had looked at some options regarding pursuing the parking concept, and a very conservative figure, it would be $275,000 if you were to install a new permanent parking lot at the location. We also considered the alternative 1B, which was the interim green space and asphalting of the existing parking lot. The benefit would be that it would allow more time for civic deliberation as well as further due diligence on staff's end. And unfortunately, we don't have cost estimates yet for alternative 1B because right now what's unknown is the what type of features, what type of landscaping the council wants to see for that property. But once we get the go-ahead, if the council decides to move forward with alternative 1B, we can have those costs developed within the next few weeks.
So a second range of studies that we then looked at were basically a park, and this park doesn't really have a lot of precedence. So I'm not really sure what to call it. It could be called a pocket park, a mini park, but basically the first one of those alternates was to take the entire site and develop a continuous park across the site, and I think the most appropriate uses would be passive recreation, sitting, passive kinds of exercise, not group sports by any means, but basically individual, quiet and low-key activities. So that, and I'm sorry, the area of that park would be about 17,500 square feet. Again, 100 by 175. A second variation would be to provide some public parking and a pocket park with about 11 parking spaces shown here, and then about a 10,000 square foot park in the remainder. And again, there are a lot of prototypes for these kinds of small parks and the kinds of things that can take place in these parks.
So in pursuing the park concept, we had put together some conservative estimates of about $350,000 for a new park. Taking into consideration the recently adopted Parks and Open Space Master Plan, staff felt that the site's small size and location near Temple City Park, even though yes, it would create a new park, it would really be neighborhood serving, and we're not sure if it really would achieve the goals of the Park and Open Space Master Plan. However, if the council does decide to move forward with the park, staff does recommend alternative 2A as it fully maximizes the site for public use. And as you saw in that diagram, all the parking would be provided off-site.
In the retail alternatives, we actually did a number of studies. The first one was to look at possibly a bakery or other retail that would occupy the corner, a parking lot on the surface that would be entered from Temple City and exit at the alley. And this was about a 5,400 square foot retail and then 22 parking spaces. Excuse me. In response to that, I think there was some sentiment that the driveway may be a little bit of a missing tooth in the retail continuity of Temple City Drive. And so we looked at a second option which closed off that driveway, entered parking from the alley instead, and had consequently a larger retail and more parking. In this case, we had about 6,000 square feet. That could potentially have a lobby at the corner for two different uses, or could be a continuous single use across that entire footprint. And then with that, we also had the possibility of outdoor seating at the corner, really expressing the fact that there's a major intersection there. And again, some prototypes of the kind of pedestrian-scaled storefront that might occur at that corner. Very open and glassy, again, for people coming into the city. A third retail alternative combined the idea of a small park, a very small park, with a cafe, where you could come outside of the cafe, eat in the park or drink coffee in the park, and the park itself here would be about a 25-foot wide by 170-foot strip. Again, very passive, mostly picturesque landscape that would be kind of a frontage for the city. And again, a very small cafe, in this case, a 2,400 square foot cafe.
Did you find any actuals like that?
I'm sorry?
Were you able to find any actual restaurants, parks that
We
exist already like that?
We have a few images that are coming up.
Okay.
And yeah, there are some prototypes for that kind of thing. Not precisely in the same setting, but you'll get some pictures in a moment that would convey that. And then this one, again, kind of opens up the driveway and puts the cafe facing Workman with the park as kind of a promenade or a gateway into the city. The disadvantage, I think, of this one compared to the previous is that it puts a lot of activity on Workman versus Temple City Drive. And then I think there is a trend to some extent in downtown retail, the revival of people living above the retail and basically operating the business from their own house, if you will. And so this one is a variation where we had live-work with living units above and the cafe below, and again, a kind of gateway seating area for the cafe at the corner, preserving a park along Workman.
Yeah, excuse me, I believe.
No, I'll wait.
You're going to wait? Okay.
Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, actually, we may have lost those images. I'm sorry, but there are a number of kind of cafes and parks from the very large scale, like Bryant Park in New York, where you have kind of a restaurant that sits in the park, to a lot of small cities that do have kind of converted landscape strips that have retail or a cafe that's kind of interactive with the landscape beside the street. So there's kind of three layers of interaction. I'm also recalling some of them up the coast, like Ojai or Santa Barbara, where kind of restaurant, landscape, and street are all kind of coexisting.
So should the council pursue the retail concept, there will be a lot of seminal questions that the council's going to need to discuss regarding what type of tenants it wants for those spaces, and what type of site control and property disposition it wants to do. In other words, does it want to lease the property? Does it want to sell the property? Does it want to do some type of a shared ownership? There's a lot of discussions with that. Also, best practice is you typically would hire a third-party analysis firm or professional services so that they can really work on the project costing and negotiations and the structuring of the real estate transactions, especially since you are using public funds possibly for a private project. And finally, the scenarios we provided, those were based on best case scenario. Obviously, the retail market as well as local demand will ultimately determine the building size, the configuration, and other amenities for that concept.
Brian, I have a question. We were going to look at the existing parking lot that's there to see how usable it is.
Yes.
Did we take a look at it? Have we reviewed it?
Yes, we did look at it. It looked pretty usable, although we would recommend probably putting some new asphalt on it just to clean it up.
Is that full of holes? Or?
Not that we saw. There's some cracks.
Yeah, there's some major cracks that just need to be filled up. Otherwise, it look quite usable.
So even though this is a small site, the last set of concepts really address ideas of, in a modest way, more robust city making, city growth, city density, kind of looking at ways to increase the vitality by increasing pedestrian life and inhabitants in the downtown area. So the first one looks at a senior mixed use with restaurant and cafe and kitchen at the south, a gateway to parking off of Temple City Drive, and then you're looking at the upper left and lower right at two stairs that are coming down from, and elevator, coming down from residential above. And in this case, we would have 2 floors of residential, 14 units on a floor for a total of 28. And we would need to have a parking ratio that would be appropriate for seniors, which is in a market industry standard is closer to 0.6 cars per unit in order for this to work. Using the standard city standards for parking, this would not fly. So there would need to be a conditional use permit that would take parking into account for this one to work.
David, how big are the units? These are one-bedrooms, right?
These are 500 square foot units, so they're kind of one-bedroom studio,
One-bedroom
kind
studio.
of very small. And here are some prototypes of these kind of small mixed use with retail on the ground and at the sort of downtown city street level, and very modest scaled units above at 2- and 3-story scale. And then
Ask
we
a real quick question though before you go on.
Yes.
And look at these photos, these small mixed-use prototypes. These are actual sites, correct? It looks like there's one that's an artist rendering.
Yes, I think the one on the actually there's 2 that are artist renderings, and the others are real.
But they do exist somewhere.
Oh, they do exist. Yeah.
Do you know offhand if any of these do go right up against a residential neighborhood, or are these more in commercial districts?
Usually, and South Pasadena would be an example of this, where yes, they do go up against residential neighborhoods.
Is
but
one of these from South Pasadena?
No, none of these are.
Okay.
But usually when they are, they're separated by an alley, which is similar to the case here, so that there's some mitigation of the step up in scale from a single-family dwelling.
Well, there's
to
an alley on the east side of the property, but there isn't an alley on the south side of the property.
Right, there's
It's a residential street.
A street, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is, are any of these located across the street from residential? You're aware of?
Yes,
So they
yes.
are. So
yes.
that's not uncommon.
It's not uncommon. I don't mean this in a flippant way, but it has to start somewhere. And,
Well, no, I'm just wondering because these all look to be at least 3 stories tall. If you're living right next door to a 3-story building that used to be open, that's a game changer for those people.
Yeah. One of the ways that's often mitigated is to have a ground floor that's a 1-story element and then stepping back the second floor in
Right.
terms of the massing. So then a second version of this was to look at the potential of acquisition of the 3 sites to the north. And with there no longer being redevelopment, I think this is a very, a formal state redevelopment. I think this is a very dubious prospect, but it's one that we thought we should look at just to see what happens if we take 2 sites of the same scale, and then you can start to talk about things like subterranean parking and efficient parking on that site, gaining enough to support a more robust project. So here it's wrapped by cafe and shop with a landscape setback from Workman Avenue, and then the potential for more like about 54 units, in this case on 3 floors, above the podium.
So, as staff was looking at these concepts, obviously if the council wants to have urban vitality, then they should consider alternative 4B, which is the expanded site. But of course, there's caveats with that. One of the caveat is obviously cost. The second thing is if you're going to be purchasing those properties, there's a large price tag because you're also displacing and relocating businesses. And looking at just the sheer number of how much it would cost to do that, buying those additional properties at a total space of 0.3 acres is much more than what you purchased the mortuary property for. Obviously, the standing committee also did not favor the expanded site option, again, because it would require costly property acquisition. And finally, senior housing, staff feels that it's probably more of a viable option for the city's Primrose properties, just because those properties are larger and they're centrally located, and they actually make for a better grant application and tax credit application. So with that being said, that concludes our presentation. Again, the conclusion tonight is to approve alternative 1B per the standing committee's recommendation, or deliberate and provide staff with an alternate direction. Thank you.
Okay.
Put 1B back up.
I'm sorry?
1B.
And may I just add one quick comment to the last comment that Mr. Howard made. That is, with the senior housing, it will be done by a developer generally, and you need a certain economy of scale. And without acquiring more properties, it will be pretty difficult to attract a developer to come in to develop a housing on just this site alone. So that's why the architect and staff and also the standing committee agrees that a larger site would be more viable. That's why, while we really don't want to not look at this option, but I think the study had shown that this is not a viable option. That's why we did not recommend that.
Just for clarification, this part of the standing committee was more in favor of the retail with a small park as opposed to this one.
Yeah,
mean there was
we're in
discord
favor.
on
This
the
is
standing
more of an interim thing that we thought maybe we're looking at.
As an interim, yeah.
That's an interim. It all depends on how quickly staff and the architect would think that how quickly we can put together the eventual development. If it's going to take a year, and if we can do this relatively inexpensive, because we were going to demolish the building anyway, and we're basically preserving the parking lot and preserving some of the trees for a year or so that we can at least use it. But yet, obviously, we lose the economy of scale by not pulling out the pavement, by not demolishing the trees. So this would definitely will cost the city more in order to do an interim solution and then the eventual permanent solution. But this will buy its time.
Okay, thank you. Just for those that don't know, the standing committee was council members, you and Viscara. We're working with the architect and with staff on this, so I thank you very much. Okay, are there any other questions from council members? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start with the recommendation of alternative 1B. I may know the answer to some of these questions, but I didn't really hear it. So I'll first start by, if somebody could speak to what you mean by non-recreational landscape frontage. What exactly is that?
I think the language there was intended to convey that it's not a park, that it is landscape that would be dense enough to prevent loitering, to prevent recreational use, and in a way to prevent long-term affection from developing for this site, because you want to have the long-term option to develop this site as the best way for the city in the long term.
In other words, it looks nice, you just can't use it.
Exactly, yeah.
Hey, Mayor and Council, if I could address the temporary park issue. There is a consequence to designating and using even a portion of the site as an interim park. Under the law, there is no such thing as an interim park. It's either a park or it's not a park. And if it becomes a park, there is a much more constrained process that the council has to go through in order to abandon the use of the park and then dispose of it. It's not so onerous since we bought it with unrestricted city funds, and we don't have a deed restriction, and it's not dedicated in a tentative tract map, but it's still a fairly onerous provision if it's actually used by a park. You have a protest hearing, and then you have to submit it to a vote if there's any protest. So that can really be a limiting factor on your further use. If you're gonna make the site all or part of park and that's your intended use, that's great, you don't need to worry about it. But if you're really having that as an interim use, we want to avoid any designation as an interim park, a park, open space, or recreational use, which is one of the reasons I think we're trying to hedge in terms of a non-recreational landscape buffer or something. That's a good interim use.
So that's a bell you can't unring.
Yes, well, you can unring it, but it's really difficult.
So there would be no open grass area for people to, let's say, sit on, for example?
No, not necessarily.
Well, how are you gonna stop them from doing that?
You can have a nice landscape buffer that has open grass area. People can sit on that. It's just that we're not going to designate it as a park or recreational or open space.
Well, I
and
understand that
encourage
part. We're
those
just not
uses.
gonna call it a park.
That's right.
But it can have all the aspects of a park.
Well, I wouldn't say it could have all of the
Well,
aspects. You
it's
wouldn't
gonna
wanna
have
put a
grass and
playground there.
plants, and you're not gonna put playground there.
Probably wouldn't want to put
You know, or-
picnic benches there. Completely passive, as I think the your
Maybe couldn't even
consultant
put trash receptacles there,
would. Trash receptacles are always a good idea in any parking lot,
or
yeah.
in a park.
Parking lot.
Parking lot.
Parking lot. Well, yeah, in a parking lot. I'm talking about the park. Talking about the greenery now. I know what a parking lot is. Okay, so non-recreational landscape frontage, looks nice, can't use it, just to make it look good until we decide what we're gonna do with it. Okay. Civic,
I'm sorry, but that still sounds risky, though, based on everything you said. It's not?
The less like a park it is, the better. Depends on how much future restriction you want to have.
I don't know about
Big
you, but if I see
boulders.
grass and I see trees, people are gonna probably wanna stop there, hang out.
And they're gonna call it a park.
And they're gonna call it a park. Hey, I'll meet you at the park over in the corner of Workman and Temple City.
Yep.
All right, well, civic deliberation. Is that a fancy word for having all these studies again and these meetings at Live Oak Park and have people come and put things on the board and tell us what they want to do? And
It's a fancy word because I couldn't find any other word, and I apologize. Basically, it's a word that says, let's buy some time here till we know if there's a better use for this site. So, for example,
But who's going to tell us that? Is that,
Well,
are
it
we
c- it-
waiting for the answer from the public?
well,
Or are
let-
we waiting it from staff? Or are we waiting it from ourselves? And also, what is the time frame? What is,
Right.
when we say civic deliberations, I mean,
Right.
next, give it 6 months, give it a year? You know, what is? the-
Right.
It's up to us.
I think if we just scratch the word civic, just for purposes of this discussion, really the intent was more like, let's do an interim measure until we explore further whether or not the council wanted to do a retail option or a senior housing option. Basically, it was just a phrase that said, let's just get something in the ground if the council so wishes. That way, it looks better than a property that has chain link fence around it.
Well, I
So
totally agree with that idea. Certainly, nobody likes to look at chain link fences and ugly old buildings. Certainly, this option is certainly a lot better looking than that. My question is, why wait? Is it because we don't have the information for us to make that determination up here today? I mean, if that's the reason, then let's just say that and
Yes. and-
not call it civic deliberation. I just had because I'm thinking civic deliberation, I'm thinking, okay, here we go with the meetings again. And not that that's a bad thing, but I don't know that do we really need to go there for this parcel of property?
Yeah, but I think part of the, I wouldn't call it difficulties, part of the process that we'll be going through in order to develop this, let's say into retail. I mean, we have to decide whether or not we're gonna put an RFP and ask the developer to come, where city will own the property, or we're gonna sell the property to a developer, we're gonna develop ourselves and lease it out. There are just too many options out there. I don't think we have enough before us. We don't have enough financial information to show the council or to make any recommendation. That's why we're saying that this may take a year or may take even longer. It all depends on what the council wants tonight. Let's say the council can decide tonight that we're going to do just the parking lot or just the passive pocket park, then I think we don't necessarily need to do 1B at all. We can just go full board.
Well, that was my question.
Yeah.
Kind of is like, do we know the timeline? We don't really know the timeline on that, though, really. Let's say we decide, okay, let's go retail, or let's look
Right.
at that. That's still something, as you say, and I agree,
Yeah.
something that needs to be fleshed out, worked in detail. Okay,
Yeah.
how we're gonna do this, as Brian mentioned, get the people on board that we need to do the studies to make those recommendations of how and who we're gonna go
Right,
after.
right, yeah. But if we were to just do a full parking lot or full park, I think,
Yeah,
I think there's enough for staff
Right,
to
right.
move on
Okay.
without doing the 1B.
What else? Okay, those are all
Brian?
the
Oh, I'm
questions I
sorry.
had, thank you. Go ahead.
No, it's just a quick question. And this thing, if I'm reading this right, it's someplace in the neighborhood of 275 to 350, right?
Yeah,
Not 1B.
Parking lot.
I would say more about 300,000. Again.
Not 1B, you're not
Oh,
talking
I'm
about
sorry,
1B.
for 1B, I'm sorry.
One-
It would probably be a little bit less than that, because you're
Well,
not
quite
really
a bit
doing,
less than that.
probably, what, 150?
I would
Well, if you're
venture
going
to
to use
say,
the
it's-
existing parking lot, you're going to save there.
Right, but again, I'm looking at if we're gonna have to backfill the property, or once the building is raised, whether they're gonna have to backfill it.
well, the
whether we're
backfill
gonna-
cost you have to pay no
Right.
matter what, though.
So right now, we don't have a clear figure on that. Again, we don't know what the council's direction. We can come back, though, with a more conservative and accurate.
The number you have here is 275 to 350.
But that's for,
I thought it was for this. It's under fiscal
oh, it
impact.
says right here, if the council opts for a parking lot, park, or a combination of the two, project costs are estimated in the range of 275 to 350. So again, this is based on whether you want to pursue alternative 1B, or if you want to pursue alternatives 1A and, I'm sorry, alternatives 2A or 2B. So basically, 1B, 2A, 2B.
My question was, for
175.
1B, how
Sorry?
much is it going to be?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think you were saying that if you're just filling the cracks and painting it, it's significantly less than
I
everything
believe
else.
it's
But
significantly
you got to
less.
plant a bunch of grass, too.
The only thing that might cost
Maybe not grass.
money would be if you were to put an irrigation system in there. That will cost some money. Otherwise, we'll have to water it manually during the interim.
Well, we could go the drought-resistant route.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Did the,
In fact, we'd get $2 a square foot, wouldn't we?
You'd have to remove
There's
it.
no grass there now.
did the standing committee or the committee look at the, just leaving the parking lot section as the parking lot and leaving the mortuary part, just that part
Fenced off?
fenced off? I mean, $275,000 for a temporary park, as much as I love parks.
It's a little pricey.
Well, not just a little pricey, it's kind of that thing like death by chocolate, you
Yeah.
know, it's death by parks, because you're gonna kill that, any further developments
Not a park, you
coming,
can't call it a
not a
park.
park.
Yeah.
But it's gonna end up being a
Green space.
passive green space where people will be. So you're gonna have people fall in love with having place to go take a sandwich or sit there.
Especially if they live around there.
If you live there.
Our work.
Yeah.
And I think if we want to make that Temple City Boulevard anywhere near a commercial corridor with having mixed use, which I thought was one of the things we were looking for in our strategic plan, I don't know why we're wasting our time looking at temporary options. That's just my feeling.
Well, I just want to clarify, I agree with you, except this is not 275, I want to make that clear. This is not 275.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Councilmember Yu, we have a figure for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that if you already have the demo contract in place, that's an assumed given. I think all you're talking about here is doing a small patch of landscape. That would, my guess is it's less than 100,000. And I would suggest that an option to a passive kind of usable space would be xeriscape to the density that you really wouldn't be able to do much more than walk around it, that it would be a presentational landscape rather than a kind of a usable park space.
Would there be a possibility to do a demonstration, drought-resistant
Yes.
section and partner with the water companies?
Yes,
and
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah. And get it done for
I think
free.
that's another legal question potentially, but whether or not that establishes a precedent that
Ask Arizona to send you some photos.
I have one on the corner.
Good examples, already made.
There's nothing in the law that defines park that talks about demonstration, landscape areas, medians, buffers, setbacks, so I think we're gonna be okay if that's the way you choose to go.
Okay, any other questions from council members? Okay, I'd like to open it for any public comments. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Okay, nobody wishes to speak. We'll close public comments. We'll now go to council comments again, moving towards some type of motion. I'll give the standing committee members first crack. Fernando.
Go ahead. I'm still thinking it through.
All right.
All right. I think when we discussed this, the standing committee seems to favor a retail option. And personally, speak for me, I think the retail option I like is the one with the lift work above concept. But because this may take some time to put together, I'm also in favor of having some kind of interim option, because it may take a year and a half for this to happen. And when we bought the property wasn't usable to the city, to the citizens for a long time. And I just hate to keep that place unavailable. So I'm in favor of actually doing 1B. Personally, I believe it can be done rather inexpensively, because the cost for the demolition is already included as a separate project. We're really talking about filling in the footprint of the mortuary building with some kind of planting that wouldn't allow people to actually consider it as a park, but, the cheapest one would be, putting some drought-tolerant planting. Honestly, I really don't see how that could be $100,000, but I have hope that staff can do it rather inexpensively. But I would like to see some kind of retail option with a gateway monument, a place for artwork, and that is the this option with the lift work above. So
Which option is that?
that would be 3E. I hope it's this option.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah,
3E?
3E.
But when I was looking at the report, that's like just a couple of units though, right?
Yeah, 1 or 2. Yes.
1 or 2 units,
That's for whoever's running the business downstairs.
perhaps, I guess.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
I don't, you want to live where you work?
Yeah. The advantage of this is that because it has no setback, it kind of continues that commercial building frontage all the way up Temple City, but yet it gives the space for either a trellis or a space for public art, and also it helped to have a little landscape buffer. It keeps all the activities towards Temple City. It's only parking and also planting close to the residential areas. So,
Mayor Bloom, I know this is kind of out of order, but well, you on that point, My only concern with some of these, including alternative 3, is it looks from the drawing that there's only one way to get in and out, and that would be through the alley.
Right.
Is that doesn't seem like to be too much of an optimal use of, wouldn't that create some issues?
I believe all the existing retail along there, the only access
use
they
the
have is the alley.
Plus street parking.
Well,
Yeah.
street, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah. That doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't.
Maybe they don't want to use that. I don't know, just,
Okay.
all right, point
Okay.
taken.
Yeah,
I'm
done.
sorry.
I'm done.
you're done?
Okay. I'm kind of in the same place that you are, Vince. The only thing I'm uncomfortable with, because I don't know enough about it, I think of the live-work thing as a New York thing. Does that work here? I mean, I don't know. I have no experience with it.
I think that's very much part of a market study that could be quite useful here in looking at the potential for a space of this size and whether it's feasible or not from an economic standpoint.
And then the other part, I'm usually somewhat impulsive and tend to want to get into things quickly, although that doesn't really happen much in city government. The other thing I don't know is the number of financing options that there are for let's say I'm inclined to go with the retail. I think bakery, but maybe cafe or something like that. You know, I like the idea of a cutesy thing there with the parking and that little strip on the side. But making it happen, how many options are there? Are there tons of them? Eric?
Are you talking about public financing options or private financing options? Or?
Well, there you go. Those are the things I don't know.
There's a lot of different options, and I think that's one of the reasons your staff is really recommending hiring a real estate consultant to help walk you through what those options are. You know that there's going to be some kind of public-private investment in this site. The exact form of it, I am not
Can I
experienced
just
enough to say.
ask, are we not just looking at the interim use for tonight?
No, the whole enchilada.
I thought that's what it said here.
That's the recommendation.
That's the recommendation.
the
but That's
recommendation.
the issue.
Yeah, I
But are we
think that-
gonna discuss, are we putting the cart before the horse because we're gonna have the, what was the fancy word? Deliberation,
Civic
something? Civic
deliberate.
deliberation and ask the community what they wanted. So if we sit here and deliberate tonight about what we want, are we gonna not do that with
Although-
the
Well,
residents?
that's kind of my point. I don't want to get into all that.
Okay, so you don't wanna do that at all?
No, I want to move out on this thing.
Okay, so
But-
I
but-
just wanna make it
But I
clear.
don't know what the impediments are. And I know we need to be somewhat cautious in that regard. So I'm trying to think of how to approach it. I think we need to go ahead with the demo of the property, one way or the other. I'm a little uncomfortable with the park that's not a park and how we're going to handle that. But I think as soon as possible, we need to get a hold of somebody that knows how to put the financing together on this kind of thing and knows whether a city can do it or whether we engage a developer or do we have to sell the property. We don't know what the best option there is, and we need somebody to tell us what options are available.
So maybe we should do that instead of each one of us sharing what we want, because we don't have the information.
Well, no, I think we need to know what everybody wants, and then we got to figure out how to finance it.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, if the majority of the council wants a parking lot, I mean, we have enough information to move ahead. If the majority of the council wants a park, then again, we have enough information to move ahead. I think that's why we're coming to you right now, because the Senate committee does not feel comfortable making that kind of recommendation, giving staff direction to take the next step without involving the full council. And
Well, I'd
so
like your
tonight,
option.
really, basically, I think there are several options before us. The full park, full parking lots, and other options. Now, whether or not we do interim, that's a side question, but I think we need direction from the full council as to which way to go. If it's a full parking lot, if it's a full park, I think we have enough information to move ahead. But if the retail is the recommended option, then there need to be another interim step, and I think staff is recommending us bring in somebody to help us and put together the, maybe other options. But if you want a park, we don't need to go to that step.
The other thing I would throw out is if we want to do, something like 1B with the strip there on the side, and I was only being half facetious, that we do consider using a drought-resistant landscape so that we don't have the appearance of a full-scale park.
Right.
I believe at the last meeting I shared that, I don't know if it was Baldwin Park or one of the cities received $50,000 for just a small section of a drought-resistant demonstration
Yeah,
garden.
yeah.
So I think those grants are out there, and especially because that's a heavily traveled street, there'd get a lot of people taking a look at that, and I think that would appeal to the water companies also.
Okay, are you finished? Councilmember Sternquist?
Well, I like the retail option like Vince did, so I would move in that direction.
Are you talking the live work or just
Yes,
the
live,
work?
work, play, drink, whatever, the whole ball of wax.
So you see the apartment above the
Yes,
retail?
I like that. So I would go with that, and then I would imagine we're gonna talk about the interim tonight also then, use of it. So that, let's do what you said first. Go ahead and decide what we want to do. So I like the retail with the live above.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. I go back to Gonzalez Cadale Architects' basis for all of this, and I don't know if they came up with it or that was staff, but I fully agreed with their rationale, and that was to, when considering what we're going to use this site for, and that is, one, is a potential as a ceremonial gateway into the downtown area, and two, the catalytic effect to spur the area's overall redevelopment. I think those are great qualities to aspire to, and I think that's what this lot really needs. I do not believe that concept 1 or concept 2 meet those needs. Public parking and just a pocket park do not, in my mind, really hit those. However, concept 3, the retail, does. The question for me then, and I don't know that we even have to decide that tonight, because it sounds like if we do lean towards a retail development, we still have a lot of homework to do, a lot of figuring out to do, what, where, and how. I like a lot of the alternatives in concept 3 that were come up with. I suppose since we're all picking one, I kind of like alternative 3D, which gives us that open space, the retail, and the parking. The only thing I would change on 3D, though, is I would move that cafe restaurant back out to the corner where people can see it, incorporate in a little area that you had in some of the other ones with an open space, and then maybe move some of this park area to the back along, maybe closer to the alley, because that's where you have the residential coming from. And actually, truthfully, it would be a lot safer if it were off the main boulevard than if it were just right there on Temple City Boulevard. So, with that little tweak, I think that gives us the space, that gives us the retail, that gives us the parking. And also, for me, it does retain that in and out off of Temple City Boulevard. I think if you're going to have people coming in there, it's good to turn off of Temple City Boulevard. I know a lot of the other businesses do not have that, but I bet you they wish they did. So I think that would meet those use. I'm not really sold on the mixed use, especially the one that you guys have talked about. I suppose, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. If you're going to want to put two live workspaces above that, I guess we're going to be a landlord then, I guess, and we're going to have to rent those places out. And,
If we retain ownership.
yeah, if we retain ownership. But, that's you know, I don't know if mixed use in that area is going to work. What else? You know, when I'm reading through this report, you know, I know we always say, well, we can't control what type of businesses that come into town because we don't own any property. Well, we own this. This is our opportunity. This is maybe one of very few opportunities we're going to have come along. And I think it's very important that we you know, hit it. And I think people in this area would like some a little different places. We always talk about locations, places to go, places to meet, places to just, you know, enjoy. And I think the ideas brought up in Concept 3 will meet that. You know, the interim thing, you know, I understand, and I understand why the standing committee came up with that, because it's not a bad plan, because I agree in that we're all tired of looking at these ugly areas, you know, and it certainly would be nice to use it for parking and then see a nice area. But, you know, my concern is that when you start doing temporary things like that, they tend to become more permanent. Maybe people will get used to the parking, they'll get used to this so-called non-recreational land, and then you're going to be harder to go back and then make those changes. To me, it would seem like we got a clean slate. Let's just go now. Let's do it. Okay, and so I'm leaning towards the retail concept and Concept 3, whatever ideas we come up with. I think that's for a later date. As far as Concept 4, the senior housing and some of the prototypes in here, I just don't think that it's, given the height and some of the concepts that were posed, I don't know that that's a good location necessarily for that type of project, so close to that residential area. Maybe in another part of the city that would work, even on the north side, maybe a north corner or something like that. I think it would work better at an intersection than it would be that close to the residential. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. My thoughts, maybe thinking a little bit bigger than this, looking at the property on the east side of Temple City Boulevard from Workman North to the existing city parking lot. We have a bunch of old, tired, worn-out buildings in that area. And I think the uses have sort of been squeezed in there over the years.
You're talking about up the street.
Up the street.
North. Going north.
Going north. As far as I know, we haven't had any discussions. I know we don't have redevelopment, but I'm not aware of any discussions with any of the property owners, any of the business owners, of whether there's any interest at all of anybody upgrading or doing anything in that area. I think if we talk about having a nice chunk of property, I think we need to explore that. We need to talk to those people and find out whether there's any other interest there. As far as moving forward at this time, it does a couple things, and this is talking about the interim. We demolished the building. We've got a boarded-up building with chain link fence. We get rid of the building. We clear that out. If we add just the temporary parking in there, I believe there's 31 parking spaces. One of the issues we had when we talked about the downtown parking issue was we do not have enough spaces downtown. We were having employees parking close to the businesses and basically using up the parking where customers should be using. This would allow space for people to, especially employees, to move further away, to open up the spaces in the couple block area that has been demonstrated as the most congested that we have, and the businesses that are in there are complaining on a regular basis, we don't have enough parking to do this. So I think to move forward at this time, and then adding what Councilwoman Sternquist has said, the opportunity to put in a demonstration drought-tolerant area is we're pressing that issue with our citizens as we're in this drought, and I think we need to take some leadership role in demonstrating what's the possibilities. So to me, I think we can do something better with that commercial corridor. I don't think we've got all the right players. We're talking to all the right people yet. So I think we need more time to do that. but moving forward, getting rid of the building that's an eyesore right now, adding some additional downtown parking in a very near future, addressing the drought tolerant demo project. I think we got some win-win-wins here quickly, and we do need more time, and I agree with the things that we're talking about here, but I don't want to jump into this. I think we have a real possibility here that not just the property we have, but possibly larger property in a key section of our downtown area. So I think we need a little more time to pursue this, and I guess I would still leave it with the standing committee to go back and, come back with some recommendations. I mean, how do we move this forward? We asked a lot of questions. What are the financing options? And, all of a sudden it's public, private, it's this, it's that. All these things, and there's a lot of options here. And I don't think we've gone down that road far enough for the potential that we have here. I mean, this is really, I think, a very great opportunity for us. So those are my thoughts. I'm in favor of moving forward with 1B right now, because I think we can get some quick successes here. As Councilmember Viscara says, let's get some things done that we can show for it. And I think we can do that. And then I think we can have a more deliberate discussion about what some bigger options are for us.
Can I ask?
Sure.
But how do you justify expending the money for this temporary when you could actually use that to support the permanent use?
Well, I don't see the temporary that much. I mean, we're already demolishing.
I've heard like 10 different figures. What is the figure? I've heard 100, I've heard 275, I've heard 350. Does anybody have an idea what the figure is that we're talking about if we go forward with 1B? What is the figure for that?
You have roughly
That was the question.
10,000
I know, but it
square
never got
feet.
answered. How much?
Roughly 10,000 square feet there, and if you landscape at, say, $6 a square foot, you've got $60,000. It would definitely not be more than 100,000, and I think the 60 would be on the very, very high side.
But what about, there's no money on the parking lot then? You don't have to
Well,
spend
there's
anything?
striping, so.
Just striping?
Yeah.
I heard there were cracks and,
You could do
I've
it-
been on that parking lot,
Sorry.
there's more than just striping.
I
can tell you that.
We had earlier said $100,000, and if I was to put a quick budget together, we would need the $60,000 for the landscaping. If there's a desire from the council to put a public art element, there's another cost. We would need to look at the asphalt. I mean, we can come back with a much more detailed budget if you'd like. That's not a problem.
Can I
Well,
ask,
I still don't have a figure on it, I guess, so. Conservatively, I don't want to pin you down because I know you still, so maybe, from what I've heard, maybe between 100 and 200, would that be fair?
I think
No,
it's,
that's
I
200 's
think
way
it's,
too much.
I think it's below
I
100.
said between 100 and 200.
I think it's below 100.
Below 100.
I think it's fun. Yeah,
You
because
just got through saying 60 alone for the park, or not park, for the non-recreational use. And then, I gotta believe it's gotta be at least 40 grand to redo that parking lot to get it ready for people to walk on and park in. No?
I don't
No.
think so.
Less than 40 grand to do
yeah,
that?
I
yeah.
think so. I mean,
Yeah, you guys don't know.
well, we're really not talking about a permanent, high-quality parking lot. It is just basically using the existing parking lot as is and eliminating some of the major cracks and
Well, about
striping.
3 months ago, I participated in a, what was that thing? CERT program.
Yeah.
And we used that parking lot as a to put out fires on. And.
Hope you didn't burn it all
Well,
down.
that's why it's all messed
yeah.
up.
Ugh.
Talk to Brian Arizumi about that. But I haven't been there recently, but, it's gonna take more than just striping, I can tell you that right now.
I've looked at it a little bit. It doesn't seem all that bad.
All right. Well, and I'm not really, one of your arguments is that we'll use that parking lot. Who's going to use that parking lot? I can remember a year or two ago when we had women in here that were saying that they did not want to walk more than a block to their car because it was unsafe. This place is a little further from Temple City than a block. So.
No, in inclement weather.
Yeah, or in inclement weather. So I don't know who's going to use this parking lot, but I would hope they would. And our parking studies didn't show that we had deficient parking. We just had parking lots where people didn't want to park in because they wanted to park right next to the place that they worked or shopped, so.
Right, yeah, this was the central core where the heavy issue was that we were addressing.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like a judge who's being asked for continuances after continuances. And it's like, sooner or later, you said, okay, let's get it done, you know. But, you know,
I'm with you on that.
Okay.
I think this is just a Band-Aid and just another way of just delaying what we really need to do, so.
So, Councilmember Chavez, so would you recommend then that we just move forward, don't do anything in the interim, and just focus on doing something?
Well, it's not, we're not gonna do anything in the interim. I say we focus on getting what we want there. I think I've heard almost everybody up here, except for Carl, say that we're in favor of the retail option, whatever form it takes.
Yeah,
Carl's indicated that, let's look at the bigger picture and talk to the owners north to Las Tunas. Well, if any past history is any indication, that's gonna get us nowhere fast. You know, and then once these owners find out that we're trying to either buy that property or do something with it, you know what the prices are gonna do, they're gonna go up. So I don't know where those options are.
I have a related question to that, Mayor.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Is this actual here? Are there that many separate properties?
Yes,
That's a bunch.
And they're probably owned by different people.
yes.
Well, I'm sure we have records of who owns them,
Oh, yeah.
whether an individual owns several of those or whether they're all separately owned and.
Yes, we do. And in fact, of those properties, a majority of them were purchased between 2000 and now. So fairly
Yeah.
recent purchases.
And I'm sure every one of those owners would love to hear us talk about how we're going to redevelop and fix their places up, but how many of you think are gonna wanna pay for that? I'm sure they're gonna look to the city to pay
Yeah,
for it.
no, I'm not proposing that the city does it. I think there's opportunities, there's, you know, either public-private, bringing a developer in to address the larger issue. I think there's options here beyond what we can do, and I'm concerned that we just take our little thing and do that and miss an opportunity to do something more significant here. That's my concern.
Well, what if we, just throwing this out there, what if we just demolished it and kept a fence around it? And I only say this because I have looked at a fence in a much larger empty lot on Temple City Boulevard for over 25 years. And I think we haven't had people roaring in here at council meetings complaining about the Alpha Beta site,
Yeah, no
although
kidding.
we get asked about it. So why don't we just focus on moving forward with what we want to do with that and just leave it with the fence around it? I mean, it's a lot of staff time and effort and to put in temporary parking and a temporary, or not a temporary park, but a temporary landscaping until we decide what to do. Maybe having it with the fence around it is going to be a motivation to actually get it completed. I'm just throwing that out there. But
Well-
if we look at the Alpha Beta site,
Well, it's an eyesore for 20-some years, and we don't want to
Yeah, I
repeat
agree.
that.
well, I think now I just go buy it, I don't even pay attention to it. And we're not looking at 25 years, I'm hoping we're looking at a year down the road.
Well, I think we can do better than that. We can do better than the Alpha Beta stuff. I mean, if you really don't want to spend the money on the landscaping and you're okay with, pardon me, with fencing, we can always fence the demolished area. Don't put landscaping in, leave the trees where they are right now, and just open that parking lot for overflow parking. Don't even stripe it. Just leave that overflow, park however way you want it.
Well, and to me, it's not so much the money, but
Yeah.
the point that Councilmember Sternquist just brought up is like, I know that once, if we get that parking lot looking nice, we put in we would draw tolerant or whatever,
Right.
decide we do there, the thing's gonna look nice, there's gonna be no incentive to do anything with that for who knows how long. And then,
But
maybe
I-
if that's our goal, then I guess then that's the way we should go. But I don't know that that's necessarily our
Well,
goal.
I'm not disagreeing with that. All we're saying is that we believe if we take it to the next level, which I think we're all in agreement, be there of a larger scale or smaller scale, the retail, something to help revitalize Temple City as a downtown, that's gonna take time. It will take, I would venture to say, construction alone is gonna take you 1 year, let alone putting the deal together. So if you ask me conservatively speaking, I'm looking at 2 to 3 years.
Can we do this then? Can we say, okay, let's go ahead and do the temporary solution. You say it's not gonna cost a lot of money. It's gonna cost substantially less than what we have here before us. And get that done, but at the same token, come to some agreement as to, what we wanna do. So
Right.
that I just don't wanna leave here tonight and say, okay, let's just do alternative 1B and then we'll get to it later on.
No, I agree, totally agree with you. I
you
think we
know,
have to have a plan. to
Whether
move
that's
ahead.
Carl's plan, and I don't disagree with Carl's plan, it would be great if we could get all these people on the same thought, but, man, that's a lot of individual owners up there. That's gonna take somebody, some concerted effort. We do have a new city manager coming in, though, huh?
Make it work.
Good work for him to do. Community Development Director. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, if we could, I know Councilmember Viscara stepped out. Let's take a 10-minute break and then come back. We are adjourned for about 10 minutes. We were still on item 10A, the proposed design concept for 5800 Temple City Boulevard, which is the old mortuary property. Obviously, we've been having some good discussion. I'd like to comment to David Goodell and Gonzalez and everybody. You obviously brought us things to think about that we hadn't thought about before, and I appreciate the standing committee and everybody. I mean, just by the level of discussion we're having, obviously, we've got some options, some exciting things to do here. So with that, we've had, I don't know if anybody wants to comment any more council discussion?
Just real briefly, I think, from what I can gather of everyone's discussion, I think we're all on the same page as far as making that corner, at least temporarily for now, a place that we can utilize and also a place that isn't unpleasing to look at. Okay? The question then becomes, how much do we want to spend on that? My concern was it was going to cost over $100,000. Okay? I've heard otherwise tonight, that it may not be that much, and if that's the case, I have no problem with recommending that item 1B in the interim, but at the same time, I just want us, and if we can either frame it in a motion, as part of the motion, or maybe come to some agreement tonight as far as what direction we also want to move on. And I think, as I stated earlier, I think we're all in somewhat agreement that of all the concepts that have been presented to us, the most, the optimum one would be to move in the direction of some retail, whether it be mixed use or whatever, including your discussion about maybe talking to the other businesses in the area, which is the bigger picture, I agree, which we're not going to decide, which is not going to be decided tonight. But given that thinking, if we can all agree on that, then I think I would support a motion that would at least, go towards meeting that end.
Okay,
Okay?
I'll entertain a motion.
Vince, you want to do it then?
Yeah, I'll try. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve alternative 1B with a budget not exceeding 100,000, and also require the staff to come back with a more concrete number before we proceed. And then also that will give us time for staff to come back and the standing committee to come back within 90 days with a more concrete plan to study the retail options. I don't know, how's that sound?
Does that include immediate demo of the property?
Yeah.
I would second that motion.
Okay, could I
Mayor and
add an
council,
amendment?
before you
I'm
vote,
sorry.
I just want to clarify, the presentation that you have lists alternative 1B as a temporary park.
Yes, temporary parking.
And
Well-
is that what you're going to designate this
I'm
as?
sorry.
As a temporary park, or
No, 1B is,
did you want the demonstration drought tolerant?
Well, it wasn't going to be a temporary park, remember? It was going to be it was going to be a landscape, non-recreational landscape frontage at the Gateway corner.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're clear in terms of
That's
the
in the,
motion.
that's 1B.
Okay.
So this is utilizing the existing parking lot.
using the parking lot
Okay.
with a maximum
Tear-
budget of $100,000 or less, and
Okay,
And
tearing down the existing?
tearing down the existing building.
Isn't that already budgeted for? Didn't we
Yes.
already
Tearing down
budget
existing,
that?
yeah, that's budgeted, yeah.
And then do we want to add to that motion pursuing funding for a drought-tolerant demonstration
Okay.
area here?
All right.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll, with that amendment, I'll second that.
Can I
as
ask a
well.
question?
Okay?
Do we really need 90 days?
Could be done less, but I think we need a development specialist to bring them on board, probably an amendment to the architect's contract. I don't know.
The 90 days is not, if I understand, is not for the 1B component,
No.
but
No,
for
no.
the study on
No, I
retail.
understand that,
Yeah.
and that's my question. Do we really need 90 days for that?
With the new city manager coming in, I think you're going to need a little bit of discussion time.
Right.
I think 90 was,
That gives us still on before the end of the year, so.
Yeah, we just need to make sure we bring this back to the full council soon.
You need 90 days?
90 days or less.
Brian?
Let it, or less.
Yes, please.
I knew I shouldn't have asked.
He wants
Okay.
120.
okay, we have a motion and a second, and we've had some friendly amendments that have been seconded.
Is that clear enough as a staff? Is that, are you
Oh,
clear
yes,
as far
clear
as
as
what we're
mud.
doing?
Okay, if I can repeat, I believe it's to proceed with the demolition of the mortuary property, to utilize the existing parking for a temporary parking lot, to take the land where the mortuary building is, and to utilize that as a drought-tolerant demonstration project, pursuing funding from some of the water agencies to help us do that, and that the standing committee come back, or the staff and standing committee and the new city manager come back with additional recommendation within 90 days.
And can the parking be utilized before the demonstration project is implemented?
Yeah, I'd say parking as soon as possible.
Yeah, and all under, all under $100,000.
Excluding the demolition, which is already
Right.
budgeted. Okay,
Can I,
we on board?
can I just ask for some clarification, because I may be a question. What are you looking for in 90 days? Are you looking for concepts for retail, or are you looking for,
I think we're looking for the development of those concepts.
okay,
So we may or may not be able to bring back a solution. I think this is
Right.
taking it to the next step.
I think coming back with alternatives like you did
Alternatives.
before.
Available,
Different options.
available options.
But flesh them out a little bit more.
Exactly. You know, coming back with some alternative for the full council to consider.
Which would include the real estate person that
The-
would
council
include the
talked
real
about.
estate person that would come in with the
You
finances?
see, I would anticipate that when we come back to look at that the next time, we'll be ready to make a decision based on the information that we have before us.
Yeah.
So
But-
that we don't delay any further, or at least not, maybe a decision on what direction we're gonna move in.
But if we were to retain the real estate person, I think we may also have to authorize the city manager some money to in order to do
Yes.
that service. So I don't know, maybe it's now it's a,
I'm just going to say, you're going to have to bring the demolition RFP and contract back for council approval. So you're going to need to build in the time just to get that back to you at another meeting. And you're going to have to approve a contract for your consultant. Because it's likely going to be more than
But
your
is it going to be approved?
city manager's authority. And I don't know if you have appropriated an amount of money for that.
For demolition?
No, not for the demolition, for
The
the
additional studies.
Oh,
Well,
no.
real estate consultant or analysis.
well,
No.
last time when we did the architect's contract, did we bring it back to full council for approval?
If,
Oh, we did? Okay.
under your charter and your purchasing ordinance, if the council has appropriated the money in the budget or through a budget amendment, and it's under $25,000 or under, city manager can proceed with signing a contract. If it's over $25,000 or there's no appropriation, it has to come back to council for those two things. So you're gonna keep in mind that you're gonna see both either an RFP for a demo plus a contract. And I don't know if you're gonna give any instruction to staff on whether you want them to do a full RFP on a real estate consultant or just a smaller request for proposal, something shorter. I mean, an RFQ, but build in time for that too.
Okay. Well, if the staff would have to come back with to us for approval for a demolition, bid proposal, then that would be a convenient time for staff to also come back with a recommendation for additional funding as well.
Yeah, I agree. The more that these can be stacked on top of each other, the better. But we're still gonna have a couple actions that we're gonna have to come back to council to take, so.
And I think the tone, or at least the direction, and I think we've made that clear, is that we just don't want this to stop at the parking lot recreational or non-recreational. We want to keep it moving forward. So whatever staff can do to make that end or to meet that goal, that's really the direction we want to go in.
Okay.
Okay. Could we have a roll call on this motion, please?
Councilmember Sternquist?
Yes?
Councilmember Vizcara?
Did you get your second?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom
Okay.
seconded.
I seconded.
Yes.
Councilmember Yu?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez? Mayor Bloom?
Yes. Okay, this item has been approved. Thank you for the good discussion. Thank you for the consultants that stimulated the discussion here, and I think this is exciting and moving forward. Okay, we'll now go to item 10B on the agenda. This is the second amendment to the digital billboard advertising and amortization agreement between the City of Temple City and Temple City Gateway LLC. I believe we have a presentation by our Economic Development Manager and Assistant City Manager, Brian Hayworth.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Bloom, and good evening, council members. The item before you is a recommendation to approve a second amendment to the digital billboard agreement with Temple City Gateway LLC. There's also two associated actions with that, one being authorize the interim city manager to execute the amendment as well, and I'm sorry that there was an oversight here, but also to appropriate $15,000 for an unbudgeted streetlight location that was mentioned in the first amendment. So just a little bit on where we are right now with the contract. Back in October 2011, the City Council approved the billboard amortization agreement. That was for a 40-year term that allowed the developer to demolish the old billboard there at Olive and Rosemead and construct a new digital billboard in exchange for some concessions, including some property enhancements, as well as allowing the city to provide advertising on that billboard. In February 2014, the council approved a first amendment that was concomitant with the billboard going live, the new digital billboard going live. And so there was some provisions that were adopted for administrative purposes, specifically for how the city would load its advertising spaces on the billboard, as well as for some visibility concerns. Now that the billboard was up, there was some safeguard measures to make sure that no city fixtures, trees, things like that would materially obstruct the billboard. And finally, in October 2014, the city, as well as representatives from TC Gateway, again, we met to discuss a request by TC Gateway regarding visibility and a contractual milestone where there's a request for an amended timeline. So the agreement, just to provide a real quick recap, the agreement provides for 4 milestones, and to date, 3 milestones have been completed. Phase 1 through phase 3 were completed well in advance of the anticipated deadline, which was to remove the old billboard, make improvements to the vehicle service stop, as well as to install the northbound facing and southbound facing digital billboard screens. Right now, the developer is in phase 4, which is in the process of installing architectural gateway signage and lighting that would run the span of the property. Also, the developer was required to provide landscaped areas between the vehicle service center that's currently on site, as well as the car wash bays. And as a progress report, the developer has met that deadline in way of providing signage plans. They were submitted earlier this year and will be approved later this week. Just to provide a rendering of what that architectural overhang signage looks like, it's provided behind you on those screens. So the developer tonight has requested the following. One is to extend the phase 4 milestone, and the second request is to move a street light and remove 2 banners. So going into the first request of the evening, right now the developer is in the process of recruiting tenants for a build-to-suit drive-through concept, which basically means that a national credit tenant wants to come and build where the car wash bays are right now. If you've seen the property, it's a very awkward property. because it's almost like a pie-shaped lot, and so there's access issues there. And when you do build for suite, it's basically a prototype that the retailer wants. They have a certain building footprint. They also have corporate branding requirements, items like that. So by requiring the developer right now to put that architectural overhang sign in right now, we're thinking right now that it may stifle potential development for reuse of those car wash bays, and it may also require the sign to be altered or moved in the future. So given that the developer has met the milestones to date, we are recommending that the council approve a second amendment in that spirit that extends completion of the Phase 4 milestone to July 31st, 2016. And as you'll see in the contract amendment, we also had provided some clarification for what is required for the term installation, as well as some clauses for if the developer does not meet this deadline. The second request is in regard to a street light that is located at the corner of Rosemead and Olive. And the street light is an old Southern California street light. It wasn't moved as part of the Rosemead Boulevard project, but it was under the term of the First Amendment to relocate that 27 feet north. And as you can tell by the graphic behind you, to move that street light 27 feet north, you're basically moving a street light right next to another street pole on Rosemead Boulevard. So it didn't make sense to us. So working with the city engineer, there was a proposal that both parties had met, which was to move the street light across the street to along the easement of the flood control channel. And not only would it still provide ambient lighting in the area, but it would if we were to move, let's say, the street light on the property side of Olive, you know, right there in front of the car wash bay, by putting a brand new street light right there, that could probably impede future development of that site, because what if a driveway needs to go in there or likewise? So we felt that that was the best concession. So again, the recommendation is to remove the street light across the street. Additionally, we had found that there are two banners that are located on the block between Olive and Rancho Real. There was some concern from the developer and his marketing group that the banners impede vehicular traffic or the visibility of the billboard coming southbound. So we had removed those, or we're recommending removal of those banners because it does conflict with the clause in the agreement that the city will not materially impair the visibility of that billboard. So with that being said, we're requesting that the council enter into the Second Amendment as well as appropriate $15,000 from the undesignated general fund balance for the contractually required street light relocation. Thank you.
Okay, are there any council member questions for staff?
I have two questions. We'll start from the beginning. The first recommendation, that is to delay or give an extension for Phase 4. When you talked to the developer, was there any, if they were going to go with a drive-through concept, in National Credit tenants would most likely want their own name and their own signage and their signature architecture. So have you discussed perhaps if they come back, there might be a change in the look of the proposed architecture?
Yes, that's a possibility, that the sign may have a different look. But we felt that right now, this amendment would allow the developer to negotiate the terms and kind of develop the whole development concept, where then at that point, a revised sign could be presented to the council that meets both the developer's needs and the tenant's needs, as well as the council's need. So we would probably be along in those discussions by early next year.
So you anticipate coming back again, or is that a staff level discussion with a different look? If a different look would be proposed?
I think the answer to that question is we don't know.
Okay.
It's premature for us to discuss publicly exactly what the developer is pursuing unless the developer wants to share that with us. And even then, the conditional use permit had a very specific use in mind. And so there is a real possibility that what the developer is anticipating is outside of the boundary of the CUP. So there might be a need to amend or modify the CUP. We just don't know.
I see.
That's one of the reasons that you'll see that staff is recommending we give a significantly longer period of time before installation to give what we think is a reasonable period for all of that to happen and to have a much more detailed picture that we can come back to.
Okay. Second question is much simpler. The two banners that are to be removed,
Yes.
would the street light remain? Those where the banners are hanging off?
Yes, they would remain.
Right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff at this point?
I have. Can you go to page, I guess it's 5, the one that shows that Temple City Gateway, the concept, the artist concept?
Oh, I'm sorry, on the presentation?
Yeah. Okay, so it's been a while since we looked at this thing. It's now coming back. So the initial concept was that was going to go up just as we see it there, correct? And that's currently over the, that car wash, and then I think there's an auto repair shop there, correct?
Correct.
Now, the plan is to remove the car wash and have a build-to-suit drive-through concept tenant.
Correct.
Is that like McDonald's?
Yes.
Okay. We have a lot of fancy terms tonight. I just want to make sure we bring it down to the, so everybody understands, including myself. So there's going to be some drive-through place there.
Correct.
We don't know who at this point. But to follow up on council members' views, any drive-through there is going to want their own sign up, I would imagine. So how is that going to fit where this Temple City Gateway thing is going to go? I mean, to me, this is not even going to happen the way this is considered.
Right.
So
And
it's going to be totally different. But that's okay. I guess
Right.
you'll come back with a new design and show us what it's going to look like. And that's what we want the 2 years to do. I personally think 2 years is a long time to extend. I would think that, especially according to the report, we have developer has already solicited and is in final negotiations pending with 2 national credit tenants. I would think that you would have something to do with less than 2 years. That just seems like an awful long time to get that back to us, but.
If I may, Mayor Pro Tem, those are great comments. And just for clarification, the agreement never required the developer to redevelop the car wash property. The developer had taken it upon himself to redevelop it because there was concerns in the community that they looked blighted and that they would take away from the enhancements on Rosemary Boulevard as well as the facade improvements on the nearby vehicle shelter.
And I agree with that. I mean, to put a sign like that over the current tenants there, it just seems, there's a saying, I can't remember, putting lipstick on a pig or something. I won't go there.
Still a pig.
Yeah, it's still a pig. All right, so I understand. So, okay, so it's 2 years they want to extend to get that done. All right. Then the next question I have is on the sign, on the poles. So is it necessary, we know we have to take that one pole down. Is it necessary to relocate it? I mean, otherwise it'll be a dark area there, or?
Yes, it's our understanding that the ambient light that's created from the billboard actually turns off, I believe, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, because
And
it's
so that
pretty
creates
bright. I mean, it lights up that area while it's on, that's for sure. But it does turn off at some point.
Yes, and
2
so that
o'clock.
area along the, I guess, the
Yeah, it'd be a little
wash
dark.
right there, the flood control,
Okay.
it gets a little dark there.
Okay. And then the last one, the street banners, on the picture I have, they look like they're well below the sign. I don't know how does that impede the visibility? I don't see it. Is that?
We'll have to defer to the developer
Okay.
for that. It is a matter of perspective on where you are located on the road.
I mean, I'm looking at this picture, and, okay, so the report says that in the developer's mind, it impedes the visibility for traffic going south on Rosemead, although our picture shows traffic going north on Rosemead. So is it, which one is it then? Is it, obviously
It's north. It's north. We use this picture because.
slide? I think
But
this
no,
was,
in your report, I thought you said
right.
that they were complaining that it impeded the visibility going south on Rosemead. But the picture
this
we
is
have
the
is
one.
going
Right.
north.
Do you
I'm
have
sorry,
the slide?
yes, let me.
And,
So
and,
there's so
and can I
many-
ask, if this, I'm sure somebody knows, what is the height of those banners? Does anybody know what the height of those banners is? And then, what is the height, what is the bottom of the sign? How low does that go? Okay. Okay, so this is, I'm looking at a photo, it looks like it's taken from going south on
Yeah,
Rosemead.
it's a southbound traffic
Okay.
looking up, so at some point that
I don't know
banner-
where that picture was taken, but it must have been taken by somebody laying flat on the ground and looking up. But I don't know. Do we know where this picture was taken from?
It was provided by the
Because
developer.
obviously, it does look like a difference. It does make a difference. So, I mean, was it taken like from the hat or something, or where was it taken
That looks
from?
like it was taken in the middle of the intersection at Broadway.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars there. I don't know who took that picture, but they took their life in their hands and they did that, didn't they? Okay, so, all right, so I can see, so there's if you're looking at that angle, then it looks like it does impede the visibility.
Well, the one banner does.
Ba-
the
ba-
other
One
doesn't.
banner does, yeah.
Barely, yeah.
Yeah, barely does, and then like I said, I don't know where that photo was taken, but,
Yeah,
I mean, to me, it just seems like you look at, what is the height? I mean, I'm looking at the picture here, and it looks like there's not even close to being in that. But I suppose if you can take a picture from any angle, maybe we should get Jerry up here to tell us how you can look at something and it would take a picture of it, and it certainly would be in front of something else. So I don't know.
Okay.
All right.
I hope the developer has taken notes of the questions here, because I'm
Yeah.
going to ask him to come up and.
Okay, that's all I have.
I have a
for now.
follow-up question, if I
Okay.
may, to Mayor Pro Tem's comment about the length of extension. I believe the extension was 2 years is for the installation of a sign, or is that 2 year for the tenant to move in? I want to get some clarification on that.
It's 2 years for installation of a number of the original Phase 4 improvements, which, if you'll give me just a moment, I can find in the agreement. It does include installation of the sign, but it also includes a number of other elements. Installation of the Temple City Gateway overhand span from west end vehicle service building parcel to the east end car wash structure parcel. I'm assuming that was the large gateway sign that we were looking at. Installation of the Temple City Gateway channel letters, installation of architectural outdoor lighting focused on illuminating the Temple City Gateway overhand building elements and landscape areas, new designated landscaped areas within the west end service center building parcel and east end car wash structure parcel.
So essentially, they will have to have all that installed by July 31st, 2016,
Correct.
not the beginning of planning, but
Not the
was it
beginning, the
completion of
Yeah,
construction?
the developer has asked for a shorter window, but wanted to say that installation is obtaining permits. And we've disagreed with that because once you obtain a permit, there are so many things you can do to extend the time during which you have to construct that we thought that was too soft of a deadline. So we added a little additional time and tried to make it a hard deadline on installation of these things that were in the original agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from council members? Okay, I'd like to invite the developer up at this point to comment on some of the questions that have been raised by the council.
How you doing? Good evening, council. First, if I can comment on, wait, if we can leave the last photo. May I approach? Probably a little bit easier. Actually, the main obstructing banners as you're driving southbound, this photo was only intended to plot out, which street light needed to be removed, and then plot out the two banners. It wasn't a focal point on the obstruction of visibility from the banners. The most obstructing banner I originally called out as you're driving southbound and you're on Broadway Avenue, driving southbound on Rosemead Boulevard. There's two banners. One that is just south of Broadway, and one that is just north of Rancho Real Road. So when you're driving down and you're sitting on Broadway, you're looking smack center of these two banners. Now, when we went on site, I met with Mr. Don Penman and Mr. Brian Hayworth. They had said, listen, if we remove these two banners, then we have to remove the two across the street, then the continuity of, the Temple City street improvement starts to go away. If we can just, so this was the most obstructing, the second most obstructing, and then the least obstructing. So as a concession and in the spirit of just finalizing these elements with the city, I conceded to just removing these two banners, this being the least obstructing, and this one I didn't really have any concern over. I mean, this could potentially remain. It means, there's no bearing north or southbound, and this one is the least bearing, although so hopefully that puts into perspective what we were trying to achieve over here. Realistically, I would love for these two to be removed. Those are the most obstructing, but like I said, in the spirit of cooperation with the city, I felt, it would be better served, just to remove the furthest north.
I was going to say, as you indicated, these two here, the one closest to the corner there obviously is directly below the billboard, so I don't quite understand why that would have any obstruction to the billboard.
No, that's what I'm saying. That had zero bearing.
So that one can stay.
Yeah, so what we conceded was, Don was saying, listen,
Sorry?
I was gonna look at this photo real quick to see.
This one?
Yeah, can we tell which one you're talking about there? Because that looks like the one that, do we know where this one is? This is, this looks like it's right in front of,
This one looks like it's the second one down.
banner north of Rancho Real Road. That seems to be the one that is causing, at least according to this photo. Is this the one you're referring to?
see, this, okay, this is the old street.
Because this one isn't interfering.
I concede with.
So which one is this one? Do you know where this is?
This one is
That's
right
not-
over here,
so
but what
that's
this
the one
photo,
you're-
this photo's not showing is, the new banners hadn't gone up.
Oh, I see. So this doesn't even have some of the banners on it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there's a banner here, probably.
correct.
I don't know.
So if in the order of obstruction, this is the worst, the one directly south of Broadway Avenue. That's number one. This is the number two, most obstructive, and then this is the third. This one doesn't even matter, it could stay up. But what Mr. Don Penman had mentioned was, well, why don't, if we can remove this particular banner, we can stay within the continuity of, the street improvements.
If I may, council, just to clarify what Mr. Lorenzo is saying, by removing those two banners, then you wouldn't have a gap with one banner being removed. And then also there's a natural break where the banners begin after Rancho Real, because if you look across the street from the banners, there are no banners there.
So what you're saying is by removing these two, it'll look better.
Correct.
Than just removing the one in the middle.
Correct.
Because then it'll look like something's missing. People will call, hey, say, you got a banner down over there, and,
Right.
and, so we remove those two, And across the street, there aren't any banners?
Correct. So then it's just
So it wouldn't-
it's
so it would, like,
logical.
Maybe that's
yeah.
not where we start.
Right.
All right, now I see it. All right. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions that we have for Mr. Di Lorenzo at this point? Any other items you want to address at this point?
No, I think Brian and Eric did a great job.
How about, Mr. Lorenzo, how about the timeline? You comfortable with the extension will allow you to get the signs up by then, the July 31st, 2016? Yeah, okay, great.
Yes, remember, you guys may look at a simple overhang, if you will, but there's nothing simple, about this next piece. As I was telling Mr. Penman, this is essentially going to become the face of Temple City. We're building a landmark, if you will, if you go back to the original rendition. So, we're looking at roughly the top of that overhang from grade is about 20 feet. There's 4 feet channel letters. So to build this thing, obviously there's an issue of footings, and then you have to build a steel structure. And then once the structure is built, you have to go out on site and then for a field measure the panels, and you have to get those panels special fabricated. Conduit, roofing, fabricate the Temple City channel letter. I mean, the list goes on and on.
You're a good developer. You can do that stuff, so don't.
And I didn't mean to imply that it was a simple thing. I'm just saying, we're looking at this concept, and when it comes time to approve, whenever that is, it's not going to look anything like this, I'm sure. And then plus, I mean, I know that, it may seem a big thing, Temple City Gateway, but we have a lot of gateways right now in the city, and we've spent a lot of money on establishing those. And to me, if there's a Taco Bell sign right next to that, I don't know what impact that's going to have on that. But we'll wait and see. But we'll see what the concept is, because I know it can't look anything like this.
Well, the goal wasn't to mount, a Taco Bell sign on the overhang, if you will. Remember, that stands roughly 20 feet from grade, so where the building is going to situate well below. Really, what's going to move once God willing, we've successfully captured the right tenant, if you will, is, if we build that today, I can't theoretically demolish that car wash structure. So it's going to impede on demolishing that car wash structure. And then depending on where I situate that building, every retailer has a different footprint, if you will. Starbucks is different than Popeyes, is different than Lollicup. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Okay, but that will get played out over time, right?
That's what we're trying to flush out right now. So if I build it today, I can easily pull the permit, build it today, and that's it. It's game over. I'm looking at this thing going, wow, well, this is the Temple City Gateway here. I think there's a better use. Now that we've come to this point, is a coin car wash the best allocated use for this property? I mean, eventually, I would love for this to become a walking destination.
Are you only putting something where the car wash is? What about the corner there? Is that
the corner right now is a test only smog station.
Yeah, and that's going to stay there?
Well, for the time being, correct? Yes.
But the same owner that owns this, they own both, correct?
Okay, thank you. Let me open it for public comments at this time. Anybody? Okay, we will close public comments.
No, Jerry has
some. Thank you, Jerry.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Jerry Jambasian. I've got this wild idea. I'm looking at it, Temple City Gateway, it's beautiful, but I don't see how it's going to work, especially with a new major tenant there. I've got this wild idea. Why not something like Myrtle Avenue in Monrovia, where there's a gateway type of sign over Rosemead Boulevard? That's all I have to say.
Okay. We probably put our monuments at the entry to the city to sort of mark that type of thing. I know we did have discussions about that type of thing during the design of Rosemead Boulevard, but it was chosen otherwise. Okay, is anybody else care to comment at this point? Okay, if not, we'll close public comments. Council comments. Anyone care to start?
I'll just say, I don't know, based on what I'm seeing so far, I understand moving the light pole and all that, but with everything that we did on Rosemead Boulevard, it came out well, it's come out well. I don't think the impediment to the sign is that severe. I've got a lot of problem with taking those banners down, period.
Okay,
That's my comment.
okay. Councilmember Sternquist?
Well, before I saw the picture and the gentleman came up to speak, I can see how removing those two, since there isn't two across, makes sense. So I don't think it's going to look not uniform by taking them out. So I think in working with them, I don't have an issue with taking those two banners out.
Okay. Councilmember Yu?
Likewise, I think one of the agreement the city has with the developer is the understanding that we're not going to take away the visibility of the signs, because it was a very major investment on their part to clean up the site, to bring the digital signs to us. So I'm actually okay with removing those banners. As far as extending the time in order to give them more time to work with a tenant, I think that's a good thing. I would love to see the smart check plates go as well. But if we cannot get that and get some kind of a national credit tenant, be that Starbucks, whatever, I think it's a great improvement. I mean, there would be other challenges to try to blend the two signs together with the Temple City Gateway, but I think there are ways to do it. I just hope the developer and the architects will work well with the staff to bring back some nice recommendations. Looking forward to seeing something in 2 years.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't see these banners as being a major impediment to visibility, but for me, it's not a deal breaker, and if staff is comfortable with the uniformity of taking those two down, since there aren't two on the other side, I don't have a major problem with that. I would hope that that development would go even further. I like the idea and the concept of putting something to replace that car wash, but to me, it's like the car wash, you're not going to that area you don't really even see. It's sort of in the back, and you go right by it before you even know you are. To me, the bigger area that would really be out there would be wherever that smog place is. I would hope that would be developed too. I think that would really lend a lot to that corner together with the sign. I think 2 years is a long time, but you know what? I learned something about local government and stuff. It does take a long time. So hopefully, I'm sure the sooner the better. I'm sure it's in their best interest to get it done sooner than later. If you would rather get somebody in place. So I would hope that with that in mind, if it happens sooner, great. But hearing what I heard tonight, I'm okay with the amendment.
Okay. Okay, a couple of comments on mine. I think I too can agree with what's proposed here. I would like to make a comment, though, that we've spent considerable effort to basically green up Rosemead and make it look pretty nice. It seems like almost everything going on here is trying to sterilize as much as we can, get rid of trees, get rid of banners, let's move this away. As I drive down the street, I don't see, and maybe I'm not seeing well enough, but I don't see one iota of landscaping on this piece of property at this point. I know under Phase 4, it talks about requiring additional site landscaping, but I'm hoping that you keep in the spirit of what we're doing on Rosemead Boulevard, and not sterilize this piece of property and so it blends in. When I drive down that street, I expect to see sort of a continuous flow of what we're trying to do, and not all of a sudden like, whoa, what's this sterile thing sitting out at me? So I'd advise you as you move forward to keep that in mind. And I understand all the things you're trying to do is to maximize the use of your sign and everything else, but we do need to have a partnership. So I'm prepared to support what we amend here, but I do want you to make sure you pay attention to those issues as you move forward in the future. Please come up to Mike, please.
Just to offer some reassurance, the landscaping is somewhat part of the Phase 4. So once we know, exactly if, this retail component QSR is going to work, or if it's not going to work, where is the overhang going to be situated? And then the very last element of Phase 4 is, is a landscape plan, if you will. So it is, we'll try to, more than try to respect, we're going to have to get the approval of Temple City, regarding what improvements, landscape improvements.
Okay, I
are
just
gonna happen.
encourage
So-
you to stay in the spirit of what we're doing on Rosemead Boulevard, so.
Correct.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the Second Amendment to the digital billboard advertising and amortization agreement between the city and Temple City Gateway LLC. Authorize the interim city manager to execute such amendment and allocate $15,000 from undesignated general fund balance for the relocation of the streetlights.
A second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any objections? No objections. This item has been approved. Okay, we'll move to item 11 on the agenda, communications. There is none. Item 12, an update from the city manager. Interim to the interim city manager.
Am I on? Well, as I told Councilmember Chavez when the meeting started, just call me to dinner and I'll be fine.
Don't say that, we haven't eaten it. Good night.
Yeah.
We're very happy to say that the city's new website launched this past weekend with a user-friendly design and customizable tools. Work continues on editing content and developing new functionalities. The council will receive a formal report at its next meeting. Should say formal report and presentation, right? The Citizens Academy is back for its third class. Residents and business owners are encouraged to enroll in the 6-week program to learn more about City Hall. Applications are due on September 26th, with classes beginning on October 16th. For more information, please visit our beautiful, stunning new website at www.templecity.us. Community members are encouraged to kick off Breast Cancer Awareness Month with a walk around Live Oak Park on October 1st. The first 60 to register will receive a free gift. More information on the inaugural event can be obtained at the city's website and at Live Oak Annex. And finally, the next issue of Temple City Connect is out to print. Residents will receive the magazine in their mailboxes starting Monday, September 8th. This latest issue features profiles on some of Temple City's most dedicated residents, entrepreneurs, and volunteers. Thank you. That concludes my announcements this evening.
Okay. Thank you. Item 13, council reports regarding ad hoc or standing committees. Anyone have anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay, I believe the Strategic Planning Implementation Standing Committee met. We're still working on the document. We'll be bringing the initial document of the strategic plan to the next council meeting. At this point, it looks like there's going to be 3 phases of the strategic plan. One will be the initial document, which will be to us at our next meeting. About 2 months after that will be an implementation plan for that document that will come back to council. And then the third document will be basically a work plan put together by the staff on how to accomplish and move forward into the fiscal year that will be put together right at the beginning of the budget session for next year. So that's where we're heading with that. I believe we have another meeting Monday? Monday morning to try to finalize the document that will be coming to the council on the 16th. Okay, any others? I'd like to form an ad hoc at this point, and I'd like to form a city manager transition ad hoc committee with myself as the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Chavez on that ad hoc to work with Don Penman, Brian Cook, as we transition through the next, probably about the next month to get things up to speed with the transition.
Mayor Bloom, I respectfully would ask that you ask if there are any other council members that may be interested in being on that. I'm on a number of ad hoc committees and standing committees already, and I did start school again, so I'm teaching on Monday and Wednesday nights. So my calendar is quite full. However, if there is no one willing to do it, I will make some time, but I don't know if anybody
Okay.
else is interested in that.
I think Councilmember Sternquist would be an excellent choice.
I think so.
I think she
I
would
would
as well.
second that.
Okay, we will then have myself and Councilwoman Sternquist. Okay. Thank you. Okay, item 14, council items separate from the city manager's regular agenda. Councilmember Sternquist.
I just would like to share with our residents that the email that we received from the Sheriff's Department and Arcadia Police Department also regarding the IRS scam is pretty much in full swing and is, very, very sophisticated. Today, a family member of mine actually received a phone call from someone saying that they were with the IRS and that they owed $19,000 in back taxes. And I recalled that we had that email, so when my sister was telling me, this was actually my sister, and the gentleman said, we're going to call you back in about half an hour. Someone from my supervisor is going to call you and get some further information. So then somebody else called, and they had their social security numbers, they had information about their past taxes, so it seemed pretty legitimate. So my sister called my brother-in-law up at work and said, what's going on? Didn't you pay your taxes? And he said, yeah, everything is fine. You were with me. We had our taxes done. Well, they're so sophisticated that the gentleman then had someone else call and said he was a supervisor from the IRS and that the Alhambra Police Department was going to come and arrest my brother-in-law and sister, since she signed on, the taxes, if they didn't pay $19,000 in back taxes. So my sister gets very excited and makes my brother-in-law come home from work. He's not that far. And he's trying to calm down my sister, and he calls this gentleman who says, if you want to verify it, here's the number you can call. So he calls this other number. Now, this went on for almost about 3 hours, to the point where they just kept having more and more information, where even my brother-in-law, who is pretty sophisticated and educated, says, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to call, this number. And long story short, they actually said, well, if you don't have this money wired to us within the next 45 minutes, you're going to be arrested. The number, and they said, and Lieutenant Brown from the Alhambra Police Department will be calling you. So about 15 minutes later, they get a phone call that shows up with the Alhambra Police Department's number, and it says through, what do you call that,
call, it's not call waiting. but
Caller ID.
Caller ID, says Alhambra PD. So my brother-in-law said, you know, fine, took as much information as he could get from this Lieutenant Brown, said, okay, yeah, well, give me the number. What do I need to do? They actually had a place where you go. It's some green credit card thing. You go and you get this credit card, and it's like put on this debit, this whole sophisticated thing. So my brother-in-law calls the Alhambra Police Department, and they said, well, we have no Lieutenant Brown, but we've had 3 of these incidents within the last 2 weeks, and all 3 of them were people in their late 70s, 80s, who had transferred money. So the police were at my family's and taking all the information, but I sent the email out to the Alhambra Police Department. They had already received it. So just be aware that this is a very sophisticated IRS scam. I mean, they had so much information. So just be aware of that. One other thing is...
One thing I could say about that, if you ever call the IRS and you get somebody to talk to, then you know that's not the IRS, because that never happens. So that's your first clue.
And one other thing is, the police department and the IRS, when he did get a hold of him, or the police helped him get a hold of him, said that they will never ask you for a payment by phone. And, you know, my brother-in-law was saying, I don't know who you are, but they just kept coming back with more and more information. And then somebody else would call who had even more information, to the point where he was questioning himself, well, maybe I missed a mail thing. They said they had mailed letters to the house. So it was a mess, but this all took about 3 hours.
Who was it that warned us about this? Because I remember one of the things that we were told was that the IRS would never do anything unless it were in writing.
Yeah, I think Rick Adams.
That's who.
And I think they talked about it, the
Sheriff's
Neighborhood Watch.
Yes.
And he's actually the email that I forwarded to my brother-in-law to show the police. But everything that was on the email from Rick, like who calls first and then who called second, it was almost a script. And that's exactly what they did and how they followed. And so it's very, very sophisticated.
Wow.
I mean, even where it shows the Alhambra Police Department's ID on your phone.
Wow.
So I'm sure it would, if it was in our area, maybe show the sheriffs or something. So just be,
Wow,
very
Okay.
aware of that.
thank you.
And let's see, there was one other thing, but I have my glasses off, so we just won't worry about it. It's not
Okay,
that.
Councilmember Viscara.
I just want to say we had a very successful, thank you Kathy and staff, summer series this year. It was a lot of fun, and it's so sad last week was the last one. But for me, it's part of summer now. It's part of the ritual, the Temple City ritual. So I'm going to miss it. Look forward to next year. And I think that's all.
Okay, I remember now, because I put them back on, just real quick.
Okay.
We talked about the Citizen Academy starting, and there was, in one of the magazines we get in our weekly packets, the alert, there was an article that stated that citizen engagement in education really enhances voter participation. So now that we are on our 3rd Citizens Academy, it'll be interesting to see if our voter participation in the next election increases. And that's all.
At least by the 25 people that attend each one.
You're right, that's right, that's
Well,
right.
it depends on who the candidates are.
Yeah. Okay, Councilmember Yu.
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Nothing, thank you.
The only thing I had was to thank Kathy and Debbie Ingram for the great job with the concerts in the park. I mean, as Councilmember Viscara said, I mean, that's just fun time. And as we were talking about before, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do tomorrow with the Wednesday. Like, okay, what do we do on Wednesdays here in Temple City? So thank you very much. And pass that along to staff and all those. And I mean, not just your staff, but all the staff that supports this. Okay, item 15, reimbursement of expenses to city officials for conduct of city business and for city payment of conference expenditures. Those are listed on the agenda. Item 16, recess to successor agency of the Temple City Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. I would like to call the successor agency to the Temple City Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting of September 2nd to order. Roll call, please.
Agency Member Sternquist,
Present?
Agency Member Viscara.
Here.
Agency Member Yu,
Here.
Vice Chair Chavez.
Here.
Chairman Bloom.
Here. Consent calendar, all consent calendar items may be approved in a single motion. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved. Could I have-
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objection? Okay, the consent calendar has been approved. Item 4, unfinished business, there is none. New business, there is none. Item 6, communication, there is none. Item 7, public comments. Anybody from the public care to comment on this one? Okay, if not, public comments are closed. Update from the executive director and agency council, there is none. Matters from agency members, there are none. Closed session, there is none. We are adjourned. We now reconvene as the full council. Item 17, actions taken by city as successor agency, the Temple City Redevelopment Agency. There is none other than we approve the consent calendar. Item 18, additional public comments on items not listed on the agenda. Going once, going twice. Okay, we will close the second public comment time. Closed session, we were scheduled to have a closed item. We do not.
Not tonight. Ends up that we didn't have the meeting that we had planned to have, so we're going to come back at the next meeting.
Okay, so there is no closed session. So we move to item 20, which is adjournment. We are adjourned.
And it's only 10:15.
All right, there's actually some snacks in the conference room.